You should be a part of the next Adventurers Leadership Academy. You'll get to journey with other adventurers and practitioners of fresh expressions, participate in immersive experiences, have experiential learning, and deep theological training around the fresh expressions movement. As a participant in the Adventurers Leadership Academy, you'll have the opportunity to travel to Ohio, North Georgia, Florida, and North Carolina to learn from local practitioners and have immersive experiences in fresh expressions. In addition, you'll have online training, coaching, and mentoring along the way.
Getting in this academy and finding out that there are others out there, not just that there are others out there who believe that there's a way to do things differently, but others who are out there who are actually doing things differently and connecting to them and learning alongside of them, and all of us kind of setting goals together, what our dreams are and pursuits are, and just people from all over the place, from North Carolina to Florida to Georgia to Illinois to Ohio.
The biggest takeaway for me throughout this journey has been that church truly can happen anywhere. If you're like me, I'm an experiential learner. I can hear things, I can read about them, I can listen to podcasts, I can join webinars, and I can learn in those ways, but there's no other way to learn better than to jump in, get your hands dirty, and get to be a part of and experience and see and touch what other people are doing in their ministry to really help you to understand how to cultivate fresh expressions in your own ministry.
To see that maybe I'm not as crazy as I worried about, and that there are others out there who think in the same ways and are always looking to reach people who we are not reaching in our traditional settings on Sunday morning. So that's been the biggest gift for me.
I began to sort of explore what my calling to fresh expressions might look like in my context. And so I'm grateful for the experience. I'm excited for the upcoming adventure, and I couldn't recommend this enough.
From each other about best practices and sparking each other's imaginations to move from what has been to what can be is a gift. ALA is a place where those who feel led to take church to where the people are can gather around the good news of Jesus to grow and learn.
Join the Academy next year, the Adventures Leadership Academy. I don't know what you're waiting on. 2023, it's coming. Don't wait. Sign up for that academy. You will not regret it.
Hello. Hello. Welcome to Streams in the Desert. We are so excited for you to join us for this webinar as we are launching these new training streams that are going to be happening all across the Florida Conference. I'm joined by this incredible team of practitioners who are going to be sharing insight into some repeatable and contextual ways of being church that you can use to explore new ways of doing church in the places where you are already doing life. We're going to hear more about that from Michael Beck. He's going to talk a little bit about the theology and the heart and the practice of what the streams are actually going to look like. And before him, we're going to hear from Bishop Tom Berlin, who is going to share a word with us. So everybody, let's hear from Tom Berlin.
Hey, thanks, Piper. Welcome to today's Streams in the Desert webinar. I'm Tom Berlin. I'm the Bishop of the Florida Conference of the United Methodist Church. I'm just really happy to be at this gathering, as I'm sure you are. Before I begin, I do want to say just a special word of congratulatory word to Reverend Jill and Michael Beck and the team that's been working together to open Compassion United Methodist Church, which has just happened in the last couple of weeks. The Becks have turned an empty church building into a holistic recovery program for women. And there's going to be a congregation that'll be a part of this that'll have connection to that transforming ministry. There's going to be a weekly worship service, a weekly meal-based fresh expression, and a place where women dealing with addiction will be able to receive counseling, recovery groups, related services that'll make a big difference in their lives. Here, women will be able to gain essential tools that they may have lost, like a driver's license or a resume, and they'll be receiving help finding jobs and being prepared for work. Compassion United Methodist Church had an amazing opening day, and I know that there are going to be many more to come as lives are transformed and healing begins. Because when lives are transformed, people want to go to church. People want to be a part of something that changes their lives. And the Holy Spirit is working in fresh and new ways to heal and bless people, because we're all the children of God, and the Lord cares about each one of us. And I'm really grateful for your calling to be on the webinar tonight. I suspect that God's calling you to a new ministry or a renewed and revived ministry. And so I'm grateful that you're investing this time in yourself and in your calling. I think it's important as we begin the seminar to root that in a biblical and theological space. And that takes me to an important passage in the Gospel of Luke that's going to be very familiar to all of us. In the 4th chapter of Luke's Gospel, after Jesus returned from the temptation in the desert, he goes to his hometown. He goes to a synagogue in Nazareth. It's the Sabbath day, it's worship, and Jesus does something that apparently he did, especially in his home synagogue. He read the scroll. He opened the scroll and read the words of the prophet Isaiah. And he says this, and I'm in the 18th verse of that chapter. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he's anointed me to bring good news to the poor, to proclaim, he has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, and to set free those who are oppressed, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. And he rolled up the scroll, gave it back to the attendant, and sat down. And the eyes of all the synagogue were fixed on him. And then he began to say to them, today the scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing. Now, people found that message radical, that last sentence, that the scripture has been fulfilled. It's always a little disturbing when the Bible is fulfilled in your hearing. It was so radical that people in his hometown synagogue took him to a cliff to throw him off. He ended up walking out of that skeptical and even angry crowd right into the ministry that would verify all of his claims. In the verses that follow, right there in the 4th chapter, right after this, we see Jesus deliver a man of an inner demon, heal a woman who's physically sick, teach in local synagogues to such good effect that people in the area of Galilee don't want him to leave. They're begging him to stay. In Luke 5, the very next chapter, we see Jesus healing. Then we find him calling Levi, a tax collector, a man who would have been hated by his Jewish community, to join him as a disciple. And that's possibly the most unlikely disciple draft pick in the history of Jewish rabbis. Levi is so excited that he's been invited to join Jesus that he holds a banquet described in Luke 5. And again, notice these are in adjacent chapters. Levi wants all of his friends to meet Jesus. And this created additional controversy about who Jesus was. In Luke 5, in the 29th verse, it begins, there was a large crowd of tax collectors and others reclining at the table with them. The Pharisees and the scribes were complaining to his disciples, saying, Why do you eat and drink with tax collectors and sinners? And Jesus answered them, those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. I've not come to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. Now, in only 2 chapters of Luke's gospel, Jesus heals those who need it. He offers mercy to those who will receive it, and he upsets people who don't understand how Jesus can achieve it. Jesus is a disruptor. He transforms lives. He reaches people in new ways. He finds joy in spaces that once only offered despair. If you continue reading the Gospel of Luke or move into any of the other Gospels, the testimony is going to be the same. Jesus came to save and to heal. Now, if you're a person who's experiencing a bit of a calling, and so you thought, you know what, I'm going to check out this Fresh Expressions webinar. If it feels disruptive, you're probably in the right space. That is the nature of what Jesus does. It has long been observed that Jesus loves to be in the company of the least, the last, and the lost. He comes as a physician to those who need healing in many, many ways. And the good news is he calls you and me to that same ministry. Jesus sent the first 12 out into the world with power to heal the sick, proclaim the gospel, and share the good news that Jesus was bringing the kingdom of God into the world. And he's giving us power as well if we will hear the calling and claim it. He not only invites his disciples to join him in the task, he actually commands us to do so. Go into all the world, he says. And that word go is the operative commandment. Now, I doubt anybody on the Streams of Desert webinar needed that biblical review. I offer it simply to make one observation. The church is far more like those synagogues in Galilee who clamored for Jesus to stay with them so that they could hear his teaching over and over again, rather than the disciples that Jesus sent out into the world to share the gospel, heal the sick, cast out demons, and proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. And the crisis of the church has always been in every age, whether it will both receive Jesus' teaching and grow deeper in discipleship, and then hear his commandment to go and to receive the power to change lives. Fresh Expressions offers the church both a challenge and a conduit. It offers Christians who have sometimes felt that they just weren't in on the action a chance to be in on the action. The challenge is to find a way to engage the healing ministry that will bless the lives of those in your local area, people who feel isolated, people who are in need of a healing community, and people who need the love of Christ that's real, tangible, and helpful. Any established church can do that through its ministry. But sometimes Jesus uses new ways and disruptive ways to establish new communities because there's a particular space of healing that he desires for the community to experience. So it's really not about you. It's about Jesus reaching people through you with his love, his power, and his kingdom. Notice the sessions that are offered here. Recovery ministries for those dealing with addictions, meal-based expressions to create new communities in a time when our country is dealing with an epidemic of loneliness. And that's not my opinion. That's the Surgeon General of our country who has said loneliness is an epidemic. Here you're going to hear about queer expressions for those who are often marginalized and who have legitimate anxiety about how they might be treated if they enter a traditional church. There are expressions for young families, those seeking justice, Spanish-speaking persons. Each of these presentations will challenge us to consider who is not present in the life of the church currently, as well as new and creative means that are available to reach people. Fresh Expressions is a conduit for ministry. It's a pathway to create spaces that we lack, where people can find healing, friendship, and wholeness through faith in Jesus Christ. Friends, there's a real hunger. There's a hunger both in the church and in our communities for expressions of the church that focus on healing and belonging. Think back to my congratulatory remarks to the Becks just a few moments ago with Compassion United Methodist Church. Michael shared a text message with me on my phone the day after the opening, and I joyfully opened it up, and it said this: "The incredible thing about the group that God has called together is that we had 3 circuit court judges, a seminary president, 2 construction business owners, a bank president, and a director of a local rehab, the Ocala mayor, and someone who is celebrating a month of clean time from intravenous drug use, and everything in between. We were all worshiping together." In other words, it was the kingdom. We think the world finds the church irrelevant. That's a story we tell ourselves so that we can avoid our work. It leads to nothing but inaction on our part. The truth is, the world is desperate for people and organizations who are willing to bring transformation into the lives of people that are struggling in their communities. And those people that Michael details in his text message to me, that tells me that leaders are looking for help, and they would love for the church to be that community. People want the healing work of Christ to have effect in the world, and they're so pleasantly surprised when the church is offering love and healing rather than telling people how to vote or what to fear or who to fear. They want good news to break out in their community. And when the church is willing to directly serve those with the greatest of needs, the mission has the power to attract people, resources, and ongoing support, because that's what God blesses. I believe that the world we're living in has never been any more in need of the wisdom of Christ to inform our lives, to transform us. Never have we needed so many relationships to be created, renewed, or restored. And I hope that today's learning experience, the time you're investing this evening, will not only give you insight into how to do this work. I pray the Holy Spirit's going to use it to give you inspiration to make you willing to undertake it so that you will go. So Piper, thanks for letting me be a part of this. And thanks to everybody who will be a part of the webinar tonight. I'm just really pleased for all you're going to experience.
Thank you, Bishop. Everybody, I know we had a Facebook issue there in the beginning, but if you could show some social media love on whatever platform that you're joining, can we get some likes, some loves, some amens for the Bishop in the chat, please, for leading us with a powerful word to open us up. Yeah, thank you everybody for joining tonight. I'm Michael Beck. I am the director of Fresh Expressions Florida, which means I get to hang out with this amazing group of people and collaborate with them. Thanks for those amens coming in, y'all. And we get to do really fun, holy mischief making together. And I can't wait for you to get to meet some of these amazing people that are cultivators of Fresh Expressions in the Florida Conference. I want to share a couple slides here to jump into this. Has anybody noticed that our landscape has kind of changed? Yes, thank you. All the amens are still coming in for Bishop. What was once kind of a lush rainforest kind of situation, we now find ourselves in a desert, right? We're in a new landscape where the world as we know it has kind of shifted under our feet. And this is a whole new ecosystem. We could talk about the desert of decline that's been happening for decades in the United Methodist Church. We could talk about the desert of disaffiliation, the broken relationships that has left us hurting, that we lost colleagues and congregations and friends. And I don't know about you, but I'm hurt by that. I feel betrayed by that. But I also know that I don't have room in my heart to carry resentment or anger either. And we have to move forward. So here we are now in a new landscape. But did you know that we worship a God who can cause streams in the desert and pathways in the wilderness? A God whose grace and love can literally transform ecosystems and bring healing where there's harm and where there's hurt. I don't know about you, but I believe in that God. And in the midst of this kind of desert scenario, God is doing new things in new ways. Maybe you have noticed that Fresh Expressions is not a fad. It's a way of life. It's a way of being church in a new 21st century world. And here's the thing. In this new desert scenario, we're going to have to figure out how to get water out of cactuses. We're going to have to find the oases of the Spirit and locate those. And here's what I know to be true. None of us know how to be the church right now. Okay, so give yourself a break. Is anybody out there tired of the gurus and the sage on the stage trying to tell you how to be the church in your context? Can I get an amen if you're tired of that, or a hand raise, or a like? Right? Nobody knows how to faithfully serve your context like you do. And so the streams in the desert pathway is not another training. It's not some people that are removed from frontline ministry in a boardroom somewhere trying to tell you how to be church in your context. What it is a community of people that maybe if you're like, I think I'm crazy sometimes because sometimes I care really deeply about the fact that there's a lot of people in my community and none of them are connecting with the church. None of them are finding this precious gift of communal life in Jesus. And that bothers me. If that keeps you up at night, you're not alone. There's a community of others. And what the streams kind of offer is a way for us to come together in community and to figure this out as we go along, knowing we got a lot more questions than we have answers, that none of us really have this landscape mapped out. Maybe we have a couple key things like a compass and food for the journey and a map and a couple things to help us make the journey together, but none of us really know how to do this. We're in a new space. And in this desert, this is not a technical problem, technical solution kind of scenario. We're in an adaptive challenge. We have to learn a new way to live and be in this new ecosystem. There's an adventure spectrum that comes out of the UK. It's kind of an innovator spectrum where everybody is an innovator. Innovation and adventuring and fresh expressions is not for the elite Christians or the specialist Christians or the only Christians who have seminary education. Actually, most fresh expressions are started and sustained and led by lay people, and you're going to hear some of those stories here in just a minute. But there's a spectrum of adventuring, if you will. And there's those people, the rare breed that can kind of jump out and just start something new, fresh out there on the edge. And that's amazing. Most of us are probably in this broader part of the spectrum where we can take something and adapt it and contextualize it and figure out how this might work in our context. So, for example, we're going to hear about open table fresh expressions, meal-based fresh expressions from a Wesleyan perspective, and church at play, kind of church for the whole family with kids and arts and crafts and Jesus stories. We're going to hear about recovery church. And a lot of these are really simply taking the really beautiful things that United Methodists do faithfully all over our connection, and then thinking about what are some ways that we could take next steps relationally and spiritually with the really good things that are already happening. For instance, many churches have food pantries. Can food pantries become a space of invitation to create community dinners? Many churches have 12-step fellowship meetings, AA, NA, Al-Anon, OA. Can we take a next step with not just providing space for people in recovery, but can we start new Christian communities with people in recovery and who may be open to exploring Jesus as a higher power? So these streams are really these kind of replicable things that we can adapt and utilize for our own adventuring in our local communities. Each stream is going to invite you into community. There'll be a shared focus. So we kind of follow this thing called the loving first journey, where we listen, we love and serve, we build relationships, we explore discipleship or share Jesus in non-sketchy ways. And then we start to form little contextual churches. Then we repeat that process all over again. Each team's going to go in a self-paced discovery at the pace of grace, we call it, as we journey together. There'll be Zoom-based coaching that's provided every month so we can get together, share ideas and challenges and struggles. There'll be a community of practice that starts to form as we do this work together. And there's gatherings where we'll come together and train specifically on these different areas of focus. The trainers are cultivators. Every cultivator, we practice what's called a practitioner's ethos. So we grow our own gardens, share our experimental recipes, and we eat our own cooking. So there's no gurus, no sages on the stage. We're all just trying to do this together in our local ministry, figuring out as we go along and learning and sharing with each other. And then there's support that'll happen through some kind of online medium. It might be a Facebook group or some kind of gathering where we're posting ideas and sharing learnings and encouraging each other as we go along the journey. So next, I'm going to, this is that process, the shared focus that we kind of use. Each of the streams will be kind of following this, what we call loving first journey. So I'm going to step out of the way now, and I'm going to introduce my friend Tim, and he's going to come up and begin to share what this first stream could look like that we call recovery expressions. And he's going to share some real stories from his own local context. So Tim.
Hey, everybody. My name is Tim, and I am the pastor at First United Methodist Church of Fort Pierce over here on the Atlantic coast. And if you told me like 11 years ago that I would say those words and not be lying, I would have told you that you were crazy. But the reality for me, like recovery expressions is deeply rooted in my own spiritual journey. And so I grew up in the United Methodist Church. And so this place has always been like my spiritual home, if you will. I was a kid who was like always really searching for some kind of community. I was kind of weird, kind of just like on the outskirts of the social scene. And so I like always was just really seeking some kind of thing that I could belong to that didn't have any strings attached to it. And I just really was seeking a place I could authentically be myself. And I found that at a United Methodist Church. I found the love of a pastor who kind of just poured into me, and a community that just really embraced me as a kid. But in my teenage years, I stopped going to church like our pastor itinerated, as we do as United Methodists. And, I just kind of lost interest and found interest in drugs and other substances and the lifestyle and the communities of living that way that naturally drew me in. And I always knew like deep down inside that like something was missing. It was, I was still just searching for the same thing that I had been looking for, that I had found in church, but I was kind of unwilling to take the step back. And so after like spending 12 years pretty much destroying my life with substances and finding myself in and out of institutions and failed toxic relationships and all kinds of other fun things, I was offered a chance at recovery. I had tried without much real success for about 10 years to find a new way to live. And really, honestly, I was just looking for like something worth living for at that point. I had periods of abstinence, but I always found myself addicted to like some other kind of vice. So this time I went to a treatment facility that really impressed upon me the importance of the 12 steps as a pathway to recovery. And I had always been kind of skeptical about the 12 steps, mostly because I don't really like being told what to do. But I was kind of at the end of my road. So, so I decided that I would give this thing a shot. And as God would have it, the treatment center offered to take us to church on Sunday if we wanted to go. And on Easter Sunday of 2013, I rode on a white van to a United Methodist Church in Tampa, Florida called Wellspring. So I remembered something like really profound that day. I didn't really know a whole lot of what was going on. I was still kind of in a fog, but I remembered in that moment that there was a God that loved me. And I remembered what that love looked like and felt like as I just kind of observed the way that the people there treated one another and the way that they treated us, the people that got off the white van and walked in the front door. The pastor took a special time to come and like introduce herself to me and pray over me. And something in me changed. And so I just kept going back there. I couldn't stop. I was drawn in, and eventually I came to find out that a lot of the members of the church were in recovery. And so I just felt safe, and I found out that the worship director was in recovery. I saw him out one day and he recognized me. And before I knew it, I was in the band, and I served that church in music ministry and then in youth ministry as a volunteer and then on staff until the day that it closed. And then the final act that they did before voting to close the church, they voted to certify my candidacy for ordained ministry. And so it's always been like my desire and like my inner mission to replicate the type of support and community that I found that like nurtured me, that brought me into a new way of life. And I've always found that I just sought to find a way to bridge this gap between the church and recovering people, especially folks that are seeking to understand God, but are living with past trauma surrounding the church or their misconceptions about Christianity or Jesus or God. And so I've just wanted to always have and create a space where people can find the healing and restoration that I've found in Jesus and in the church. And I want people to know the Jesus in the church that I've come to know, to love, and to like serve with everything in my heart. And so the idea for a recovery stream of fresh expressions is really born out of this desire, and the desire of, some of my colleagues like Michael here, and people who have experienced the transformational power of both the community of faith in the church and the perfect discipleship pathway that is the 12 steps. And so recovery streams can take a lot of different forms depending on your context. In mine, I'm seeking to utilize a very low budget, low church, low key gathering type of scenario with maybe just like a few worship songs up front, like a 10 to 15 minute sermon-ish testimonial message, on a key topic, a biblical passage, one of the 12 steps, and then just follow that up with a time of open sharing of experience in the room, so that people can truly get to know one another, so people can truly come alongside one another and become a life-changing, transformative community. And all of this seeks to do really three things: like to create a safe and authentic, compassionate community, to introduce people to a deeper relationship with Jesus, and to provide a system of accountability for spiritual growth. And so, like, your context may be different than mine. I'm in a kind of a crossroads of life type of area. Lots of addiction in the surrounding neighborhood. But what we as a team want to do is to help you discover how best to break into and serve the existing recovery communities in your area, as well as to reach those who have yet to find recovery, with the good news that the church is still in the business of restoration and resurrected lives. And so that's it for me. I want to turn it over to Michael, who has been doing this stuff for quite some time now and has some practical advice for you.
Thank you so much, Tim. Everybody, if you can show some social media love for Tim sharing his story. And yeah, thank you, Karen. Absolutely. Thank you for your transparency. Real quick, 1 minute. I'm going to try to just share a couple examples of what this could look like. Reverend Joel Beck's going to share about family table later, so I'm going to jump over this. During our 5:30 AA meeting, we do a fresh expression for the parents who are in recovery and often can't find childcare for their kids. It's called Eat, Pray, Play. So we get together and do a format where there's game, Jesus story, fun stuff. We create stuff while parents are in their recovery meeting. We have a thing called Recovery Church. So it's literally grounded in the 12 steps. We'll have a little bit of a Jesus story or upfront kind of a spiritual lead in. And then we'll look about a step a month. We kind of look at the different steps and the spiritual principles in each step. We have a thing called Higher Power Hour. We go into the state local rehab, the chemical dependency unit for men and women, and we do Higher Power Hour. Our person of peace, Luke 10, Jesus says, go out, you're guests, you're not hosts. You don't own the space. You go to the people and you're dependent on their hospitality. Find those persons of peace. They'll welcome you, do life with them. Megan Huff's the director of SMA, and she's our person of peace here. So we go in every Monday night. We do a worship service. She said, you can't call it church. It has to be open to everybody spiritually, which we love. So it's called Higher Power Hour. We worship, we pray, we have a Jesus story. We reflect on the steps in an open share meeting. We have a thing called HANDS, Healing After Narcotic Death Support. This is a group for people who have lost loved ones. So 100,000 people die every year from overdose. It's the largest overdose epidemic in the history of the country. And that's 100,000 families, 100,000 people that love the people who've died. And sometimes it's a little bit harder to process that grief in like a normal grief share when the story of our loved one's death, including me, my little brother overdosed at 32 years old. To share that story in community with others who can resonate with that particular kind of pain. So that's what HANDS is. I would hope that we would have a recovery expression in every rehab all across the country, where most of us in our places, cities, suburban areas have some kind of chemical dependency rehab facilities. What if we saw expressions of church cropping up in all of those? What if we started to create community with people that are suffering from isolation and loneliness and the loss of loved ones? to overdose. So there's just a couple of examples of what this could look like. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Piper, and she's going to introduce our next stream.
Hi, Tim. All right. Thank you so much. That was really wonderful to hear. I'd love to see in the chat, we can see that here, if people threw out which streams that you're most excited about and what you're interested in. And we have some links for you to use so that you can reach out and contact us about which stream you think resonates with you. We'd love to hear about that and help you create something in your community. Our next group is going to be talking about Open Table. These are distinctly, it's a distinctly Wesleyan movement that is all about meal-based churches that we are launching all across the Florida Conference. So we have Steve Carleo, Charles DeRico, and Jill Beck.
Well, hey, everybody.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Wonderful.
Good evening.
Listen, I don't know where y'all want to begin, but I want to kind of get this going because we got dinner church going on, Open Table, right over here on the other side of this wall. So if you guys hear any noise or kids running through or people talking, that's because we got a whole big crowd here tonight. So glad to be here.
Excellent. Well, I wanted to introduce myself. Some of you may not know me because I am actually from the Western North Carolina Conference. And I was blessed last year to be appointed to lead a new church start. And the name of that church start is Word on the Street. You can see the word on the street, and we're committed to listening and loving for the word of God, who is Jesus, on the streets of our community. And so far, 4 expressions of Word on the Street have emerged. And all 3 of those expressions are dinner churches, or what we are now referring to as open table meals. And 3 of those open table meals are shared alongside persons who are experiencing homelessness here in Charlotte. And then a 4th of our open tables that has emerged through Word on the Street is a bilingual dinner church that is shared in a mobile home community in which 85% of the residents there are immigrants to the United States. So we as United Methodists, I remember I came to this United Methodist church about 16 years ago. I was baptized into the church after spending most of my life not knowing all that much about Jesus. But I came to the United Methodist Church and I was baptized into this church. And one of the things that I appreciated was a slogan that was going around at the time to describe the church, as it was a church of open hearts, open minds, and open doors. But I soon realized after I became active in the church that the doors weren't open all that much. In fact, our bishop here in Western North Carolina, Bishop Carter, who I know most of you all are familiar with, Bishop Carter, he shared not too long ago about how through a recent study, it was learned that the doors to our churches here in Western North Carolina were only open about 13% of the time. And I'm sure that's probably similarly the case down in Florida. So we, as the Methodist Church, we weren't living up to that idea of the open doors. But we have a chance here. We have an opportunity here, I believe. I think all of us believe who are a part of this call to really rethink how we're doing things. And what better way to do that than to offer an open table? How about the slogan becoming open hearts, open minds, open tables? Because we as Methodists, we are people who are known for the open table. Usually that open table, it's in reference to the sacrament. It's in reference to the open tables that are shared in United Methodist churches of Holy Communion. Now, it's debatable about how open the communion table should be. Some suggest that our tables shouldn't be wide open tables. And again, that's debatable. We don't know how exactly much persons have repented or how earnestly it is they've done so. But there's nothing to be debated about Jesus and Jesus's ministry with regard to open tables, because Jesus practiced ministry through wide open tables in which everyone was invited and had a place there. And in fact, one of the things that irritated the people in charge the most was that Jesus was conducting ministry. He was healing, teaching, and preaching around wide open tables with those who it wasn't expected, who should have been there. So again, what a wonderful opportunity. This is what I would like to, that's why I'm so excited about being a part of this group. What a wonderful opportunity to share this Wesleyan Methodist gift of the open table, and more importantly, to be a part of this new movement of that's Christian, that is as Christian as can be, known as the open tables. Thank y'all for having me. I look forward to meeting so many more of you all as we go through this process together.
Steve, what about you?
Well, hey, I just wanted to say that as district and conference cultivators of Fresh Expressions, that we are here to come alongside of you. As the open table team, we can provide a model for you to implement in your church, but not every church is the same. So there needs to be some flexibility. We want to come alongside of you and help innovate and adapt so that we can reach new people in new places. Right here in the Atlantic Central District, I know of many places basically tying into a recovery program that they're already having, dovetailing that with an open table, and even integrating some children messy church time, the eat, pray, play sort of thing. So we're here just to come alongside you and help you succeed in implementing these fresh expressions. Jill?
Yeah, so Michael mentioned about the eat, pray, play. I'm hoping to get done with this in time to be able to go right on out there. But we've got probably tonight in our context, we've got already a good 70 people that are in there. But, you know, I think for us, more than just the numbers, it's about the people and the stories that are shared at the tables and where people are doing real life. One of the reasons that the open table is so important in our context is because in our community, we have a lot of folks who are not only struggling with, addictions, but they're also still recovering from some serious financial hits that they're still recovering from, all the way back from the pandemic. And so we find that a lot of our folks are working on Sunday mornings. You look around on a Wednesday night at our open table and you're like, wow, look at all these people. And some people say at the tables, why don't they come back, Pastor? Why don't they come back? And I'm like, this is their church. This is church. This is exactly what, Jesus did, stopping with the people, breaking bread with the folks, learning the stories and getting to know everyone. And so, yeah, I'm so excited about what happens. And I think each context is different. I would say the biggest impact in the last year that I've seen is in our volunteers, folks who have been well-meaning and come in and think that this is some sort of outreach, and their hearts become, that thing that us Methodists talk about, strangely warmed. They become strangely warmed and they begin to, instead of doing outreach, they see it as an opportunity of witness, to be with the people in our community that come in and to welcome them. And so it's just such a great experience and an opportunity. And, I'm here every Wednesday night. We just started one at another church that we have been appointed to, Compassion United Methodist Church. And last night on our first night, we had 42. So pretty exciting, all of the people that we're able to reach through that. And that if you talk to them and you ask them, where do you go to church? They'll say, St. Mark's United Methodist Church or Compassion United Methodist Church, because this is it.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for sharing. I really appreciate that. And I think this is an exciting way of doing church that doesn't have to be too complicated, and everybody loves to gather around a meal. So thanks so much for sharing.
Thanks, Piper.
See ya. All right. Up next, I am going to be joined by Tracy Rose, and we're going to talk about queer expressions. Let me bring Tracy up here. There we go. So we're here to discuss queer expressions. This is a stream that centers on creating safe spaces of spiritual exploration and community for LGBTQ people and their allies. And Tracy, she's going to share more about what that looks like and why it's important to explore these ways of being church with intention.
Thank you, Piper. Hi, everyone. It's great to be with you tonight. As Piper said, my name is Tracy Rose. I live in Tallahassee, Florida, and I serve at Good Samaritan United Methodist Church. A little background to offer some context as to how I got to this point on my journey. I was raised in the church, the Baptist denomination, and I realized that I was part of the LGBTQ community early on. But I was in my early 20s when I finally became honest with everyone else about that. And so I went to the church that I was attending and I talked with the pastor about it. And I was told that I wasn't welcome there if that's how I felt. And that experience was really the beginning of a long line of church hurts that would come later on. And so through the next several years, I would find churches I liked and begin to connect with people. But inevitably, someone would find out that I was queer and I would be told that I couldn't serve or be in leadership or any way that involved children, or I was shunned or ostracized within the church itself, or I was straight up asked to leave. And this went on for years until I was so hurt that I finally just left the church altogether. And then I spent the next roughly 5 years of my life re-examining my faith and what that looked like for me, trying to reconcile who I was with who the church said I couldn't be if I wanted God to love me. And it was just me and God for those 5 years. And it took a long time for me to allow God to undo the damage that the church had done to me. And so finally, after years of study and prayer and many times doubting and questioning, I was able to just fully accept what God had been trying to get me to hear for a long time, that I was perfect the way I was. And that sort of ignited a fire in me that I never, ever wanted anyone else to feel the way the church made me feel when I came out. And there had to be a better way, a way to help people on both sides of this thing understand each other better. And so that's when I kind of felt God tugging me back inside the church to do the work there. About that time, I stumbled into Good Samaritan by way of a persistent but gentle invitation from a friend. And I fell in love with the church immediately. It was as if God said, okay, here's where your work begins. And so I spoke with the pastor at the time who assured me that I was welcome to serve in any capacity. And so I jumped in. And then the infamous vote happened at the 2019 General Conference, which retained the restrictions against self-avowed practicing homosexuals. And so I kind of wanted to run, but I sensed that God was saying, no, you have work to do here, that you are a bridge, and God was going to use me to help bridge that gap between the church world and the queer world, and that I was to help God help those two worlds figure out that we're all God's beautiful children and are all loved equally. And so I began my formal Fresh Expressions work in July of 2019 when I attended a seminar with my former pastor, Betsy Zierden. And then some things happened and a leave was taken and we got a new pastor, and then COVID happened. And so everything just sort of stopped in the world for the next year and a half. But when things got going again, our current pastor, Michelle Schrader, invited me and several others from our church to attend a learning session of Fresh Expressions of Faith here in Tallahassee. And that was in January of 2021. And so that training reignited the fire that the former pastor lit in me back in 2019. And then Pastor Michelle was instrumental really in getting me involved in the Adventurers Leadership Academy, which I started in August of 2022. And that was a year-long deep dive and immersion into Fresh Expressions work within the United Methodist Church. And I graduated from that course in August of 2023. But during that time, in late 2022, God actually called me to start a Fresh Expression, to begin it in January of 2023, and to center it around the things in life that I'm passionate about. Jesus, coffee, people, more specifically, people who have been marginalized or have had deep hurt done by the church, like those in the queer community, and conversation. And so as I was praying and thinking about what that would look like, I was reminded that many queer people are very accustomed to what we call in the queer world the bait and switch when we try to connect with the church. And so whenever anyone brings up church, we kind of run. And so I knew I needed to be sensitive to that, but at the same time, I needed to be authentic to myself and my faith. And so I started talking to Jesus and writing down all of those things I was passionate about, the coffee, the people, the conversation, Jesus. And when do we feel our energy dipping during the week? For most of us, that's the middle of the work week. And I thought, man, work and life can really feel like a grind sometimes. And I thought, well, we grind the beans when we make coffee, right? And so that's how we came up with the name Midweek Grind. And so we created a social media presence because a lot of people in the queer community are more comfortable on social media than they are in those in-person situations. And then my pastor suggested I reach out to a friend from our church, which I did. And now that person helps me facilitate the group. In fact, she's there tonight with the group. She's an amazing ally and advocate for the queer community. And through her, I got connected with a local person with Equality Florida here in the Big Bend. And I worked with her to find a local coffee shop that was also a strong ally for the queer community. And I reached out to that company. The owner and I talked about what I was trying to do, and she agreed to hold space for us for free once a week to connect in her shop and have coffee together. And then I went back and got permission from Equality Florida to advertise our meetings on their page, because a lot of people in the queer community go to Equality Florida's Facebook page to find queer affirming friendly events in the areas throughout Florida. And so we're building this beautiful, diverse community of people. We have people that want nothing to do with the church at all, yet they're there every week. We have people who go to church every Sunday, and they come as well because they're allies. Some identify as atheists, some identify as agnostic, some believe, but they've been hurt by the church and they will not go back. Some believe, but they've been hurt and they're thinking about going back. And some are really just trying to reconcile what they were told the Bible said with the people in their lives who are the opposite of that. And so no matter where they are on their journey, they're really all vested in this group, and they look forward to the gatherings, and they feel really connected and bonded to each other. And so Midweek Grind is really just this beautiful expression of what it looks like to do life with each other. No judgment for where each of us are or what our individual beliefs are. And we exist to really brew a safe space for the queer community and our allies to gather and talk about life and faith and what that looks like for each of us. And we do that understanding that we're all on our own journey and that no one's journey is the same, but knowing that as a community, we can support each other. And so we say that we do this one cup of coffee and one conversation at a time. And we are already seeing a positive impact on the community as a whole. And I'll just quickly share some things that a few of our members have written. One person said, Midweek Grind is a group of caring people, LGBTQ plus and their allies, who gather weekly to talk and share support in a kind and understanding manner. And then someone else wrote, I love the diversity of cultures, sexual orientation, and the spread of ages and the casual style of interaction. It fosters organic conversation that can stay light or go deep. And I treasure the growing friendships that I've made over this first year. Another wrote, I've been a member of Midweek Grind since March, and despite my introverted tendencies, I have a deep need for community, to reach out and find kindness and friendship. But social situations are hard for me. Midweek Grind has created a space where I feel like I can bring all of myself and be accepted and welcome with open arms. I've met some of the kindest souls I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. To have a space where we can gather, talk about life, faith, politics, movies, books, tattoo, the world is priceless. Especially during this time of deep divisions in our culture, Midweek Grind feels like an oasis of love and laughter, a place for community. And the people who lead this group have created something magical, of which I feel privileged to be a part of. Midweek Grind is an act of love. And so I would just like to say, if you're a person who has ties or deep connection with or are passionate about or a part of the queer community, you might consider starting a group like this in your community. It's easily replicable in that it's a coffee group, but what will make it a bit different is than what we in the church world, I guess, would deem your typical fresh expression, is that there's going to be a deep, true understanding of the queer community, what our fears are, our past hurts and our trauma that were caused by the church. It's going to look a little different than that typical group, meaning we're not going to go in and immediately focus on our faith, but rather just building trust in a healing community. No Jesus stories, no offers to pray, no invitations to attend church. It's really just a show up, immerse yourself, get to know them on a deep personal level, love them well, and then let them come to you when they're ready. We're really there just to hold space and be in community with them, not pull them into community with us. And so here is a quick picture just so that you know kind of what we look like. This was last week's meeting. And I don't know, hopefully you can see that. There were about 18 of us there last week, and that was a larger group, but you can see it's a very diverse group. So if you're interested in being part of that, I would love for you to reach out to me and Piper so that we can talk to you about that. Thanks, Piper.
Yes. Thanks so much, Tracy. That's a great group photo, and we're local to each other, so I've gotten to participate and be there for one of your midweek grinds, or a couple now, and it's been a good time. So I'm looking forward to everything that we'll get to do together with this stream. Thanks so much for sharing your story. It's really good stuff. Thank you. So we have next, we're going to hear about Church at Play. So this is a creative and fun way for families and people of all ages and abilities to explore faith together creatively and in ways that are exciting, and that can be done, I think, in a lot of different contexts. So we're going to hear from Tiffania Ikaza-Willits, and she's going to show us what that's all about.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I am Tiffany Ikaza-Willits. I'm the pastor at Seminole Heights United Methodist Church in Tampa, Florida, right in the heart of Tampa. Church at Play. We were thinking about how to frame this, how to share this with you all. And I kind of came up with a little phrase. Church at Play is really building intentionally intergenerational faith communities. And each of those words means something. So first, Church at Play is intentionally intergenerational. So you're keeping children, youth, parents, grandparents, all the ages that will be joining you in mind, and everyone in between. Even single folks can enjoy Church at Play. So really being intentional about who's coming. We're not doing this for kids. We're not doing this for adults with providing childcare. Everybody is together, and we are intentional about who will be in the room and how we prepare for each group of people that would be in the room. And then the other piece is that it's a church community. This is not a play group. Again, this is not childcare. While something else for the grown-ups is happening, this is church with everybody, for everybody, together. So that's the first piece. And with that, Church at Play really is a mindset and specific ministries. So I'm going to start actually with the specific ministries, because that can be easier sometimes to wrap our minds around. So for example, at our church, what we do, our church is uniquely, maybe not so uniquely for some of you, located across the street from a public Title I elementary school, and our church has a preschool on our campus. Over the years, several years of having partnerships with the school and building relationships with our preschool, our church has become a meeting place. Literally, the schools hold meetings in the church building, and it's a place that people have come to become comfortable with. We host community groups, neighborhood groups here all the time. And so our church has become seen as a safe space in the community. Because of that, we are able to do Church at Play here in our church and welcome folks without having that intimidation factor that some folks might experience coming to church. So we have monthly Church at Play dinners. The last Wednesday of the month, we have a Church at Play dinner every last Wednesday, in addition to special seasonal meals. For example, Thanksgiving, around Christmas, Ash Wednesday, some of those kind of liturgical and civic holidays that kind of lend themselves to a time of fellowship and celebration. A lot of what we do in our church for Church at Play is similar to Open Table, but again, we're intentionally intergenerational. So we still have a meal, and we actually have a meal every single week. We don't have Church at Play every single week. I'll explain a little bit about that, but we have a meal every single week. So with Church at Play, we still have a meal. We share a Jesus story, again, really thinking about who's going to be in the room, sharing at a level that everyone can hear and understand and participate in. And then we have some kind of hands-on activity that a family can do together. Again, this isn't like the kids go and do crafts and the grown-ups stay and sit at tables. This is something that everyone does together, in staying all in the same room. It's a little bit easier sometimes to talk in specifics. So I'll share with you a story of one particular family, the Rancourt family. And I cannot add my photo. So if I can get my first photo up on the screen, perfect. This is Justin and Penny. And Mom Katie is not in this photo, but they're actually all three downstairs at our church right now, serving during our open table weekly dinner. This is a young family, joined our church before baby was born. Parents were attending pretty frequently, but then baby was born. What happens? They fall off the map, right? Things are crazy. Sunday mornings, worship is right in the middle of nap time. Their worship attendance, I'm sure this is a story that many of you have heard before. And then when we were starting back, after the pandemic, starting back our weekly dinners, they just really embraced this weekly dinner and church at play as their church. And so they are here every single week. Their daughter also happens to go to our preschool, so that makes it convenient for them. But they are here every single week. They come, they help set up, they serve dinner, and they help clean up. And this is their church now. And they are leading more consistently and being here more consistently than they ever did before. And they have been some of our core people who helped build up the community that we experience here at Church and Play. In fact, Justin, dad in the picture, is my church finance chair. Mom is my church preschool committee chair. So you can see how they've been able to grow from being very marginal attenders of Sunday morning worship to real participants in the life of the church through Church at Play, and then through their own willingness to serve and lead. So that's just a great example of how Church at Play can engage, especially young families, but people of all ages who just regular Sunday morning church doesn't fit into their lives for whatever reason. Work, kids, travel, all kinds of reasons why folks aren't able to be part of Sunday morning worship, or even just the intimidation factor, right? That can come from church hurt or just unfamiliarity with traditional church. So a little bit about what does Church at Play look like? People ask me this all the time. It's really simple. The way I mostly explain to folks is if you've ever done VBS, it is a 1-hour VBS. You pick a Bible story, pick a theme. So it can either be a Bible story, Jesus story, or maybe even a liturgical season. We've done a Church at Play around Advent or Lent. Simple decor. So Church at Play is all about the being simple and paring things down. Dollar Tree is your best friend. Use what you already have. My church is 100 years old. We have more seasonal and random decorations and things than we know what to do with. So sometimes I'll just go into our craft closet and see what we have and see what Bible stories, what connections I can make. Make a simple activity, a craft, a game, some coloring pages. Those simple, small things can go a really long way to connecting and even starting conversations with folks. And so I have some photos from our most recent Church at Play, which was last month. We did a Christmas themed one. So you can see we've got a couple of kids were brave enough to come forward. And this is one of our staff and who also volunteers at this dinner, sharing about the Christmas story. And so she is telling them the Christmas story with this soft nativity set here. So everything on the table the kids can touch and play with. That is a Advent wreath with battery powered candles. So everything is there for the kids to touch. And by the end of our story, telling them about the Christmas story and everyone who came to worship Jesus, this is what our altar looked like. They brought their toys to worship Jesus and to be part of the Christmas story. And they saw themselves as part of this story in a way that they can't with our ceramic breakable things that are upstairs in our beautiful sanctuary that they can't touch. And then after the Jesus story, the kids were able to do a craft time. And you can see there's grown-ups right with them. Because again, this is a really important piece of Church at Play. Again, it's a mindset and ministries. So how can you have specific ministries that lend themselves to intergenerational? You might even have things in your church going on already that you can simply by being intentional and thinking through who is in the room and how can we really reach everyone, not just assuming the kids will get it eventually, but really focusing on those kids, those teens, those young adults, those older adults, who all the people who are present and will hear your message. So Church at Play, again, ministry and mindset. So how can all church ministries be intentionally intergenerational? Not just providing childcare so that the adults can really learn and grow in their faith, but really including children and youth in a meaningful way in all aspects of ministry and worship in your church. So that is Church at Play.
Yes, so some of you might be wondering, if you don't have any, if your church isn't looking multi-generational, how do you start a Church at Play? That's what we're working on training you on. So Fresh Expressions Florida will come out to you. We'll train. These are all very contextual. They might not look the same. They're definitely not going to look the same from context to context. You're not going to have the same Church at Play replicated. So this is very contextual. So if you're interested in doing Church at Play, come fill out the form. We're going to send you a form and reach out to us. We'll come down. We'll do a training day with you. We'll work through this with you and also talk about the listening first. So the listening first journey, this is going to take time to listen. This is not something that you're going to be able to go and launch a Church at Play tomorrow and you're going to post it out and people are going to come. It starts with deep listening and deep relationship building, especially if your church does not look multi-generational right now. So we want to make it so that this is a multi-generational experience of church for everyone. And that's going to include your volunteers. This is going to take some time. So reach out to us. We have all of the context pieces and then also the logistical pieces that you might be interested in. We can work on that with you. So thank you so much. Tiffany, you did a fantastic job.
Thanks, Jessica. Yeah, I totally agree. We would not have been able to do Church at Play the way we do now if we hadn't started by building connections with our two schools that are physically right next to us. And that's just where we are. And that's what works being here. But yeah, Church at Play can be, anywhere, literally a park. It can be piggybacking off of an existing ministry that you might have. It can be a grandparents and kids, like literally can be adapted for any age. It's like I said, mindset and ministries.
Awesome. Thank you guys both so much. I'm really excited about this stream. And I think a lot of people are also ready to do that as well as we engage with families and with people of all generations in these new ways. So thanks so much. So next we have justice-oriented expressions. So this is about building community that's focused on interracial healing, connection, and supporting Black and Brown leaders through these specifically new ways of doing church. So we're going to be joined by Tiffany McCall and Dr. Stephanie Hand.
Hello, how are you? Hi, everybody. Hi, Stephanie.
Good day, good day.
I'm going to let you go first.
I was going to yield. I'm moving. Go ahead. All right, well, I'll just go ahead and jump in. I'm Stephanie Hand in Western North Carolina Conference of the United Methodist Church, and I had the privilege of writing a book that's coming out in February with Michael Beck called Doing Justice Together. And what does that mean in our America, in our church? I believe that the church is the hope of the world. And so we are really working to say, what are the challenges in the church as we are shifting into coming out of COVID into this new land, this new world, if you will, of doing in the church, the people, it's time, just like when COVID happened, to pivot. And in pivoting, if we don't deal with the justice concerns and issues in the life of the church, then the church will continue to go off this cliff. I believe, as we know, Micah 6:8 says, do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with God. That's what we're called to do. That's the edict that we have. do justice. And so it is important that we begin having honest conversations in the life of our local churches, the districts, and conference, and beyond the conference and organizations, to actually have conversations. Number one, to listen to one another, to hear hurt and pains, to see one another in their space and not judge, but to listen. And once we listen and hear and see one another, we begin to understand that there's common ground between each and every ethnic group in this world. I believe race, and historically has spoken, is a construct to divide us. We're all sons and daughters, siblings of the Most High God, and we have to start looking at each other in that manner to do the hard work that needs to be done so that we live into a Revelation 7:9 faith community where every tongue, tribe, nation, and people are worshiping God together. And then we go back over to that text, on earth as it is in heaven. So, baby, it's time to start on earth right now, that we can do this together. It's not about Black folk doing it. It's not about white folk doing it. It's not about Asian. It's about all of us together, sitting around the table and actually listening to one another, seeing one another, talking to one another, so that we can heal and move forward into this new generation.
All right. So my name is Tiffany McCall, and I currently serve, excuse me, at First United Methodist Church, downtown Jacksonville, Florida. And I have had the privilege of working with Michael and other teams cultivating fresh expressions since 2016. And I've had the opportunity to explore dinner church, backyard Bible, get well jacks, a number of fresh expressions. However, currently I am working on prayer parties and toast and testimony with another group. But at First United Methodist, we are working on cultivating a ministry that we feel is a ministry that answers and solves, some solution to a justice issue with young adults. And so let me share with you how this ministry began, and I'll show you a little bit more about it. First, we started reading Bishop Carter and R.G. Warren's book, People Over Property. And as a result of reading that book, we began to see that there's a way to use our property differently. And as we prayed and walked, we did prayer walking, we prayer walk through the church, but we kind of stalled for a little while because we were stuck. And at that time, I was working with the homeless. And so in working with the homeless and serving them, I began to pray for them and learn their stories, just listening to them, breaking bread with them. I found out that many of them were between the age of 17 and 24. And I could not understand how or why these young people were homeless. And they would not go to shelters. They would only go, they would couch hop, they would sleep at the beach, they would sleep in the woods. And it really became a burden on my heart, just an overwhelming burden, because there's so much homelessness. But to see young people at that age with nowhere to live, I'm thinking, no, that can't be. My children are that age, and I know they're not ready for the street. And so as I began to continue in prayer, the Lord reminded me of a place I worked at when I was 20 years old, Polinsky's Children's Center. And Polinsky's Children's Center was a place for young people who were being displaced or removed from their home. And so I began to think about how our property could be used for young adults in that way. And the Lord said, Tiffany, what do you see? And I was scared to answer, but what do you see? And so I started writing down the vision. I took the vision to our church council. And unbeknown to me, this was the first time we had a unanimous vote. Everybody was for this. And I really was hard to believe, but everybody was for this mission. And so we decided to repurpose our over 12,000 square foot education building to house young adults aging out of foster care and young adults who have fallen on hardships with nowhere to go. And so, and this is an ongoing project that we are working on. We call it Mother's House. And Mother's House, the programs at Mother's House are designed to help young adults that are emerging from foster care and to give them benefits of relationships, resources, and opportunities so that they might engage into society and thrive. And they have the opportunity to stay at our facility for 3 years before they have to leave and go to live on their own. As a result of coming together with this, we started what we call dream dinners at First Methodist. And so we invited businesses, companies, members of our city to come in and dream with us, to help us with looking at how this is supposed to emerge and what else can we do and what did they see were the issues, and so how can we address some of the issues. And this vision was far bigger than me, way bigger than me, and there's so many people who have gotten involved. I know that this is a God thing. And so First United Methodist is they are thrilled. And so a part of the process, we had to start a nonprofit. The nonprofit is called Pillars Plus Foundation. You can find us on the internet, pillarsplus.org. And Pillars Plus, the mission for Pillars Plus is to unite the community working together towards the one common goal of reducing human suffering and poverty for the next generation. Pillars stands for people investing in the life and legacy of young adults reaching for success. And we believe that partnership with our community service agencies around us will provide healthy pathways to economic mobility for our young adults. And so one of the things that helped us understand why this need was so great was because the survey for homelessness states that the 12% of the homeless population is 17 to 24 years old. And the data from the Annie Casey Foundation shows that 37% of the people who age out of foster care, they end up on the streets, in prison, or in sex trafficking, or just homeless. And so, and also in Jacksonville, one of our partners called Educate Tomorrow at FSCJ, which is also one of our partners, they serve 205 students in that demographic, and 30 of them are homeless with nowhere to live. Now in Jacksonville, we have one other agency that house this demographic, and they only have 8 spaces, and they have a waiting list of 32 students. Our United Methodist Children's Foundation has a space also that they do transitional housing for this demographic, and they also are at capacity. Well, First United Methodist Church, we walk through our building. We have over 12,000 square foot of space, and it is a large space. All of our former Sunday school classes, there are enough rooms in those rooms to make bedrooms. So I'm going to ask Piper to show you what these bedrooms look like, because we've done up 2 model rooms for anyone to come and look at to get a picture of this vision, and keep driving the hope and keep the hope alive as we are preparing to serve this demographic. Piper, would you share that really quick?
in order for us to start our capital campaign.
So this room is set up to house 2 students, where they'll have a shared space, as you can see up in here. It'll allow them to have potentially a small dining, seating area, as well as TV and storage and everything. But they won't have to have shared open spaces. They'll actually be in these 2 separate sleeping areas. And so they have a shared hallway, and they'll be able to set up the space and really customize it. They have their own desk, lighting, and then we've tried to integrate some fun storage solutions to, like a mirror that opens up where we can hang. And then obviously we don't have closets integrated, so we were trying to select pieces of furniture where they can have hanging storage and drawers and have a place to where they can really put their stuff, as well as integrating baskets underneath the beds, nightstands, lots of ways. Even the headboards have some extra storage. And so we've got the lighting. You know, it's a little untraditional, but it's a really unique way of making it separate and allowing people to have their own space while still sharing. So we can see coming in this way, very similar to the previous room, but just we went with a little bit different style just to show everything can be customized. Obviously, people are going to bring and put their stamp on things, but we'll have the core pieces of storage and for everybody so they can feel comfortable and then move right in.
So what you just saw was one of our Sunday school rooms turned into like a little mini apartment for young adults. And I believe that this stream is a justice stream because it deals with the issue of homelessness and equity for all young people. And so we want to close the gaps from foster care to the prison and to trafficking in the streets. We want to close that gap. And we know that we can't save everybody, we can't help everybody, but we want to reduce that number. Florida is the number 3 in the highest, with the highest rate of youth homelessness. California and Texas are ahead of us, but we have a large population. And so why not allow the church to engage in some of this work, doing what God has called us to do, caring for the orphans. And so we believe that this is a justice stream, and we believe that it's necessary. And we ask the church to come alongside us and pray about this and get involved. And if you're doing something at your church or looking to do something different, repurposing your property, really thinking about the issues that are facing our society, I would love to be a part of what you're doing. And if I can help in any way, I'd be glad to do so.
This is actually amazing. Thank you for what you're doing. Wow. I want to simply highlight a couple of things from the book Doing Justice Together. It is not only a book that is about trying to help us heal as siblings in the life of God's church called the United Methodist Church, but it's not about intellectual understanding and just reading a book. It's about pathways, models of discipleship, leadership, and outreach, as well as organizational structure. As we heal and talk to one another, we must align ourselves to what the word calls us to do in the life of the church. And as we align ourselves to doing those things, then we step into leadership. And leadership requires us to go outside the walls of the church to meet people where they are, similar to what you all are doing in Florida. And then once we discover those things, we have to have honest conversations with the local church, the district, the conference, as to, are we aligned with what we're saying we're doing? Is our actions aligned with our words? And so we have to examine our infrastructure. I had the privilege of working as a consultant with the Florida Annual Conference, and this is the hard and tedious work that they did in their conference. Now, we didn't have a book at the time, but out of that birthed an idea to create something that's practical to help people do a deep dive in where they really are. And it's not easy, brothers and sisters, siblings. It is not easy, but it's necessary because we have to do the work. The world needs us to really, really, really be the church and who God created the church to be. Upon this rock, I will build my church and the gates of hell won't prevail. Sometimes hell is inside the walls of the church. And so we have to heal on the inside so that we can present ourselves in community so that people will desire to know more about Jesus Christ and say, Lord, what makes you so special? Why do you have such joy? And we would have the opportunity to tell the old story about salvation. That's the hard work, but we can do it together as a church, as we're do justice together. And I want to highlight one other item. If you want to know more about this, we will come to your church, your cluster churches, your district, and your conference. And so we'll have information out once the book goes out. And also, you can meet me, because I live in Western North Carolina, on the 24th, February 7th through the 9th in Charlotte, North Carolina, where we're having Fresh Expressions United Methodist National Gathering. And Michael and I will be presenting this model there for the first time. And then, of course, offering and selling the books. So if you want to know more and doing a workshop, we would love to have you in Charlotte, North Carolina on February 7th through the 9th. Thank you for this privilege and this opportunity. Let's get this work done for the sake of the kingdom of God.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Stephanie and Tiffany. Really great stuff. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about what happens with the Pillars Plus, and also what the results that come from your book and from those pathways that you are also bringing. It's going to be some really great stuff. Thank you so much. All right, so we're aware of time, and I would just please ask you just keep going, because we're going to keep on trucking, and we have some really great stuff. We have one more stream that we would love to share, and then we have some next steps, so you know what to do with all this amazing information that you're getting. We want to share it with you, so if it's possible to stay on a little bit longer with us, we would love that. So our next stream that we're going to hear from, this is why we have one of the best saved here for last. So this is Expresiones de Amor. Learn how to form multicultural, bilingual, fresh expressions with Latino, Hispanic, and Latinx communities. And this is another group of people who are joining us and helping us out from Western North Carolina Conference. And so we're just so grateful. Please welcome JD and Chris Smith.
Hola, y Dios les bendiga.
Hello, may God bless you.
My name is JD Smith.
And my name is Chris Smith.
And together we are a pastoral team in the Western North Carolina Conference in the town of Ramseur.
I hope if you've learned anything by now, in God's kingdom, there's no such thing as conference lines, state lines, or borders. God's kingdom is open to everyone.
Amen.
We have 3 rural churches that we serve, with one being a bilingual church. And our vision is to create expresiones de amor, expressions of love that bridge cultural and language barriers in order to connect with our community and reflect the kingdom of God.
Expresiones de Amor is looking at fresh expressions through a Hispanic Latinx lens. This concept was birthed through the experiences of several practitioners within our conference as we were trying to shape fresh expressions within our particular context.
So I want you to think about the community that you live in. I want you to picture the roads that you drive on every day. I want you to stop, and I want you to try to think about where in your community do you see another language? Is it maybe in the name of a small grocery store? Maybe it's on a for sale sign on a car. Maybe it's in the very grocery store you go to, where every store, at least around here you go to, has a Hispanic section. And so as you're thinking about what these things are, it's pretty obvious Spanish language is here. The Hispanic culture is here. It's not just in urban areas. It's not just in rural areas. The Spanish language, the Hispanic Latinx culture is here, and it's a part of our kingdom of God. It's part of what God calls us to be, and it's part of what we hope you want to be a part of too.
Our marriage reflects this blended culture.
Me, I'm from Western North Carolina.
And me, JD, was born and raised in Puerto Rico, beautiful Puerto Rico. For me, I learned quickly of the challenges of moving to another culture, feeling alone and being in a world where the language was not my own. So church was different, and finding connections was very challenging. And even something as simple as food and holidays was very hard.
And for me, I had to learn how to listen to the challenges of how to adapt, because my own cultural context doesn't always fit what we need. I had to be able to make room for this new blended ecology. And so it meant learning a language, which is not as hard as you might think it is. It meant trying new things, and then learning that each side has to give, and you learn in order to create something new. And so this is what Expresiones de Amor is all about. How do we create expressions of love that are in response to the needs of the community's context?
We joined with other Fresh Expressions leaders from our conference and across the connection to put together a training for all of our Hispanic and Latinx churches to help them think of new ways to reach their communities. And I want to say not only Hispanic churches, but also American churches, because we can all do this work together. This can include using third spaces such as bakeries or parks, but it can also include a traditional church building if the context allows for it. Our goal within our conference was to start with our Hispanic and Latinx churches to get them started, but we foresee these expanding to other ethnicity congregations that are looking to build bridges with those within their communities. Our hope is that in this process, we are able to create connections that bridge language and cultural barriers so that our churches will reflect the nature of the kingdom of God. It is easy to assign a Spanish-speaking pastor or staff and have Spanish services, and it feels like we've done a good thing. But the most important thing is, what can we do, and what we should do to aspire is to create spaces where both languages and cultures can have a seat at the same table and share together.
Yeah, and emphasize on the same table there. Why is it important to offer fresh expressions in a Hispanic Latinx context? Well, I hope, like I just said, it's here. It's in your communities. Our brothers and sisters are a part of our communities, so they should be a part of our churches. And so part of the coaching and training that we want to come alongside with you is to explore this question and how it is possible to do this within the context of your ministry. First, it's not as simple as just simply translating what we have and trying to apply it. Google Translate is not going to save you in this. Fresh expressions needs to be offered within the cultural context of the communities. You might have a Mexican community. You might have a Cuban community. You might have a Puerto Rican community. Even just because they speak the same language doesn't mean the context is the same. Now, there's some basic concepts of fresh expressions that will apply, but there's very important cultural differences that you need to be aware of when starting an Expresione de Amor. For example, in our culture, we tend to view those who are trying to engage as the nuns and duns. I think we've all heard that terminology before. Those that have no desire to be affiliated with a church, or those that have been hurt by the church. And you're still going to find that in Hispanic Latinx communities, yes. But we've learned that with working through various Hispanic Latinx communities, the most common thing we find are the lonely and the longing. People that have a desire to be connected to the church, but they don't know how because they can't communicate or because they're separated from anybody they know. Many of our friends that move here leave family, friends, and find themselves in places where they just feel like there's nobody around them. So finding a church when you do not know anyone becomes difficult because remember, 86% of people come because they were invited. So part of our time together is going to be focused on how do you create these spaces that are welcoming and community building.
And intentional.
Intentional.
The second part will be understanding the biblical foundation for recognizing the context and what that means for our ministries. The form of church will always be determined by the context, or the form of fresh expressions, I should say. Too often, we ask people to conform or assimilate to our norms. And Expresiones de Amor should be molded in the image of the diverse cultural context to which it serves. It is only after knowing this context and culture that the form can begin to take shape.
There's a beautiful concept in Hebrew that we'll explore together if you decide to journey with us. And our communities are the mold. And we as the church, we need to pour ourselves into our communities in order to understand its form and context and how it relates to Christ's vision of the world. We need to learn from them. We don't have all the answers. I hate to break it to you. You got your MDiv. Doesn't mean you have all the answers. Hispanic Latinx folks have been doing community very well for decades. Let me even probably go centuries. They understand just how to be in fellowship around the table, how to support one another. This is a chance for our American culture to learn what community can really be about.
We have a great tool that we will use called the Listening Church. It was done by our very good friend, Luke Edwards, here in the Western North Carolina Conference. And it is a wonderful free tool to help us how to better listen to God, our congregations, and our neighbors. This tool has been translated into Spanish as well, so it is ready to be used to help you in beginning the process of listening. One thing we have found helpful is having strangers to neighbors dinners, where we invite people for a free meal and intentionally seat people with people they don't know, with people they didn't come with. So that way they have a chance to learn from each other, to learn from their stories. And listening, it's a crucial part, it's the first step, and must be given the time it needs in order to get started on the right foot.
The third aspect of our time together will look at the importance of being bilingual and how you can do this effectively. Within our Hispanic Latinx communities, we have folks that are first generation, and then we have a younger generation that has grown up here in the United States. Families desire opportunities to be together, but when we create divisions based on language, we as a church unintentionally cause a divide within families where one must choose in doing and therefore let go of a part of who they are. Language can be a challenge, but should never be a barrier to doing bilingual work within your community.
We will explore different options and resources that can be available to help in this process. And let me tell you that being bilingual allows your expressions to reflect the cultural diversity of your community and be a safe space that is welcoming to all that are involved.
So we look forward to journeying with you. If you feel that Expresiones de Amor would fit within the context of where you are, we are excited to journey with you and are always looking for a chance to come meet great Puerto Rican food in Florida.
Thank you so much for having us.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Chris and JD. This was good stuff. I'm excited for what we have in store. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you everybody who has stuck it out here to the end. We really appreciate your willingness to ride along with us while we hear so many great stories. We didn't want to cut anybody off or make anybody not get a chance to present, because this is what this is all about, is hearing these stories, because this is the result of the hard work of some people that are exploring these ways of doing church. So I'm just grateful that we got to hear all of that. So we're joined. This is your Florida Conference Fresh Expressions team. If you've always wondered, we are the conference team. Hello, Michael. Hello, Jessica.
Hello.
Hi.
And all the we heard from tonight.
Yes, our cultivators who are just incredible. We have somebody representing in every district. So you're not alone out there. You have somebody who wants to support you and walk with you on this journey. Just before we close out, we have a couple things that you've seen the links shared a few times in the comments there, but we've got a link tree that has a bunch of links to some of the resources we mentioned. We want you to check that out and connect with us. First, if you're not really sure if any of these streams are the exact direction that you feel like God is calling you, but it's just because you're not sure yet, we want to invite you to participate in what we're calling the 21-day prayer challenge. This is something that can be done, best is done in a team or a congregation who can join together and do this 3-week journey. It begins internally with reflecting on the self, and then it moves to the congregation, and then it moves beyond out into your community. It's a great, there's lots of listening exercises and things that you can use together. So that is a great resource that we recommend. You can find that on our website. Another thing, if you're wanting to just maybe dip your toes, or perhaps you're already doing Fresh Expressions and you want to just connect with other people who have similar experiences and who want to chat with you, at the end of every month, the last Wednesday of every month, we are going to start doing what we're calling lunch break. We're going to meet during the lunch hour, 12 to 1, just on Zoom, to have a very laid back conversation. We might pick a subject maybe to kind of discuss every time, but mostly it's just about connecting with one another. So those are 2 things that we recommend if you're at the very beginning of this journey and are interested in starting to get going. Michael, Jessica, more things to talk about?
Jess, you want to jump in or you want me to?
Sure, we have a couple more things. So you've heard talked about a little bit. National Gathering is coming up next month. It's going to be in Charlotte, but that's not the only way you can participate. There are 3 ways to join us for National Gathering. Online, you can join us hybrid. So if your church has people who want to get together, you can host a hybrid site, a hub site of National Gathering. We'll gather with you virtually, and then we'll also teach you how to do all of the activities that we're going to be doing, just like we're live in this space. So if your team wants to get together, host that hybrid site. That's one option. You can join online. And then if you are joining us in Charlotte or want to join us in Charlotte, use the code FXFL for a discount on your registration. That'll bring that price down on discount. We'd love to see you there. We're going to have a little Fresh Expressions Florida gathering at National Gathering. So let us know if you would like to either be a hybrid site, an online, or if you would like to come in person. There are nearing 700 people who are going to be taking part in this in one way or another. That's the online, our in-person, and our hybrid sites. So be a part of it. This is a first National Gathering, so we're excited for that. And next, you also heard Adventures Leadership Academy was mentioned a couple times. That is something that we are partnered with a couple different conferences. That's Chris and JD were in the Adventures Leadership Academy. A lot of the people you heard from tonight were from the Adventures Leadership Academy. That academy takes you through the whole Fresh Expressions journey. It's a great first step in getting into the Fresh Expressions journey. That's through United Theological Seminary. So you're going to get a very rich education. We have scholarships available for people who want to do that from Florida. It's not just clergy, it's laity. Fresh Expressions are all about the laity. We've got some great laity empowerment. So if you want to be a part of that, let us know. We want to see you a part of that. So
Yeah, and we definitely want to scholarship laity. We have extra scholarships that have been given through the foundation through evangelism for lay people who want to go, because we know the cost can be prohibitive, and we want to make sure that that's not a barrier to you to be able to come. Yeah, and just another little plug for the National Gathering. You're going to have major FOMO if you don't come. It's like the people that are there. It's just incredible. So we'd love to see you in the space or online or however it is that you connect. And the final thing, so you heard these 6 streams tonight, and our hope is that you pray and you really think about your own context and you discern. This stream really feels like maybe the right place to start for me in my context. I'm really passionate about inclusion and healing and creating space for LGBTQ community, or I'm really passionate about justice-oriented expressions or meal-based fresh expressions or church at play. Whatever that is for you and your team at your church, remember, it's not experts coming in saying this is how you do it, blah, blah, blah. It's actually creating a community. We're going to journey together over the next year and support each other as we do this work. And we want to walk alongside you in that, pray for you, and resource you. So you got to meet some of our incredible cultivators all across the district. We hope that you'll pray about these streams that'll be starting soon and join into one of those stream pathways so you can start or continue the work that you're already doing in your local churches.
Well, thanks again, everybody, for joining us. We appreciate you and those who stayed on this extra 15 minutes. It is a blessing that we get to do all of this with you, and we're excited for what this year has in store for us. So thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful night.